Hey, do you feel like you are constantly struggling with your finances? Do you have a hard time keeping up with bills, paying down debt, or maybe building an emergency fund savings? Hey, if so, you're not alone. That's exactly how Micheale felt about 4 years ago before joining Roots. But today, things are so much different for Micheale, and she is my guest today, and she is here to share what's helped her pay off over $150,000. Yes, you heard that right. $150,000 of debt in the last 4 years. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Debt Free Dad podcast with Brad Nelson. Brad and his co-hosts experience the anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck before learning the fundamentals of financial success. They are now on a mission to empower regular people to pay off their debt for good and enjoy happier, less stressful lives. Keep listening for inspirational interviews, tips, tricks, and practical advice to gain financial freedom.
So guys, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm excited to have Micheale joining us today on the Debt Free Dad podcast. But hey, after listening to this episode, if you want to take this a step further, we've got an awesome free workshop to take this to that next step, and I'll be sharing the details about that later on in the show. So guys, like I said, I want to take a second to introduce you to Micheale Brown. Now, Micheale is a special education teacher and English teacher for the last 17 years. She loves working with students and finding new ways to either teach them reading or math. And Micheale has 3 grown daughters as well. Her oldest has a bachelor's and is working a full-time job, and her 2 youngest daughters are also working but are still in college. Micheale, so happy to have you a part of the Debt Free Dad podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you have been in Roots for 4 years now. So we've been on live meetups. We've talked a lot about different things, and I'm glad to have you on today to share a little bit about your journey and what you've been able to achieve, because over the last 4 years, you've overcome a lot, but you've also, man, when we talk about your numbers, what you've been able to pay off, it's incredible. So before we get there though, what I would like to just have you share a little bit with our listeners is just, how did you start learning about money when you grew up, and how did that education or what you learned about money as a child or even a teenager, how did that affect you as you became an adult and how you manage your finances?
I learned money from my mom. I mean, she was a single mom most of her life. And I mean, we made it paycheck to paycheck, and she struggled. I mean, she tried to save, but it was always difficult. It wasn't an easy process for her. I mean, she tried to do her best, but, you know, it wasn't an easy thing for her to do.
Yeah. Did she ever take time to, like, did she teach you anything? Did she try to show you anything, budgeting skills or anything like that?
Actually, she did teach me how to, she opened up my first checkbook with me. She taught me how to use a checkbook and stuff, which a lot of parents don't do.
Right.
And she made sure that I knew how to balance it and stuff like that. And she did that at a pretty early age, like by the time I was 16 and stuff. So she tried to help me with that and stuff. I have to give kudos to my mom on that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did that affect you as you became an adult? I mean, did you do well with money? Has it been something you've struggled with? Like, what were some of the things as you became an adult? What were the pluses and minuses when it came to managing your money?
I always knew that I had to pay the bills first. And my mom always taught me, when I had kids, you pay the babysitter before you pay anything else. Because if you don't have a babysitter, you can't go to work. And so, but it was a challenge. It just always was. It was like, there's not enough sometimes. It's just like, there's not enough for savings. You want to put stuff aside for the savings, but there was never enough for the savings because there was more bills than there was money coming in.
Yeah.
So I always felt like never had enough to make ends meet.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to that whole not enough, can't make ends meet that are listening to this right now. I mean, there's a lot of people right now that are feeling that pinch. So would it be fair to say then that most of your adult life, I mean, money's been somewhat of a struggle for you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And was it just like not making ends meet? Was there any sort of not to throw you under the bus or anything, was there anything, because we all have them, were there any bad habits or anything that you felt were now that you've gone through Roots, you've been in this for 4 years, you've made some amazing changes. What types of bad habits did you feel like were kind of keeping you stuck, knowing what you know now today?
I would probably say that I didn't budget as well. I probably overspent. I didn't probably tell my kids no enough. You
Oof.
know, I would get stuck. I mean, they'd be like, "Well, Mom, I need this or I want this," and I would cave because I wanted to provide for my kids and I felt bad, and so you know. But then I
Yeah.
learned. It took a lot to learn. It did. Yeah, I had to change some of my behaviors, and it was a struggle. But I had to learn how to do that so that I could pay off more and get myself in a good place where I was more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like I said, I think you're saying a lot of things that resonate. I'm not saying no to your kids. That's not always an easy thing. Right.
No.
And if you're not careful, obviously not being able to say no to them and setting that boundary, I mean, that can seriously add on a lot of financial stress to your life. There's no question. So you eventually decided to join us in Roots. Now this is back in like 2020, and it was right around then. And so what was like the deciding factor for you then, like to say,
Um,
maybe I need to do something about this?
I think that I was just really stuck. I needed help to be able to get myself pushed and to really make a difference. And so I was like, well, why don't I just get started and at least give it a year and see where I go. And I made leaps and bounds
Yeah.
and I made the changes and I stuck with it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the changes. And so it was not hard. It was not easy at all. It was
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. Not easy, made some changes. So looking back when you first started, what were some of the things that you learned or that you started to take action on, at least in a different way than where you normally were, that you felt started to make some of the biggest differences for you to make a big, leaps and bounds? Like you said, you made leaps and bounds that first year. What do you feel was the
Um,
biggest contributor to that?
I like started putting $75 out of my paycheck right into an emergency fund. And I've continued to do that. I've never changed it. Even when I switched jobs recently, I still did that, and so that always goes in. And so it's twice a month. So it's $150 that goes into an emergency fund. And I've had to rebuild the emergency fund at least 5 or 6 times, probably more, because I've had emergencies that have just
Yeah.
wiped it out on more than occasion. I don't know how many cars I've had to replace because I've hit 5 deer
Oh
in
my
four
goodness.
years.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. So you've had to replace your emergency fund time and time again. You've 5 deer you've hit.
Yeah, at least in a 4 year span. I haven't totaled it that many times, but I've hit 5 deer. So
Have you ever looked up the record of how many people have hit deer?
no, I don't want to.
Because you might be competing with a few people.
My family calls me the deer slayer. They've revoked my hunting license. It's horrible.
Now I live in Wisconsin, Micheale. So hitting a deer isn't uncommon, but 5 times, I don't think I've ever heard that many times.
And 2 raccoons. So
Oh man. All right. So those animals, hey, they need to be on the phones. Like, hey, Michelle's out. We need to get off the road.
that's what they say. It's horrible. I'm really trying not to do that anymore. So
Right, right. Oh, those poor deer. Oh man. So, all right. So, you've had to overcome a lot, not just from your car situations, the deer situations. You've rebuilt your emergency fund time and time again. And so, I think the reason I want to point this out is because you've definitely faced some challenges over the last 4 years. I mean, it hasn't been exactly just smooth sailing for Micheale 4 straight years to help you be able to do the things that you've done.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So
I mean,
can you share a little bit now? Now your mom sadly passed away,
she did.
and you went through some transitions with that too. Can you, from a financial standpoint, can you kind of share how what you were working on helped you kind of work through all of that and moving through that situation too?
I had to learn how to deal with funeral situations.
Yeah.
It was rough because I had to pay her bills for
Yeah.
3 months with no access to her money. None. Literally because I didn't have enough in my emergency stash at that time, I had to borrow from my grandparents, which were her parents. And gratefully they did, and then I paid them back. But it took so long, and it took 3 years to finalize her estate, which is ridiculous. Um, but it was just persevering and making sure I kept track of all of her stuff, all of my stuff. Um, again, and because of her teaching me how to run a check register, that saved me with the lawyers
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they wanted accountability of how I spent every last penny of her money. And then when her furnace went in her house, they're like, oh no, you have to pay for that yourself. You're living there. I literally had to pay for her brand new furnace. And I went probably 4 months with no furnace because we argued about this. And I had no heat for 4 months. None. And it was a cold. It was that winter was cold. It was from like October to almost January, no furnace.
Wow.
And it was cold. And there was nothing we could do. We were arguing and fighting, and I was researching, and people were telling me $10,000, $12,000 for a furnace. And I finally found one for 3,600.
Wow.
And it
Good
was
for
brand
you.
new. Yeah, I really did the research. I did what Brad would do, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to pay 10 grand. I don't have a spare 10 grand. I just didn't. I'm like, I cannot afford 10 grand for a furnace. And I was able to do 3,600, and that's what I did, and it was a lot of challenges, and it was a lot of working at it every day.
Yeah.
And it was, okay, Brad's not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep working at this, and I can do this. And so it was a difficult struggle. And, finally being able to buy the house, and I had to buy it at market value. I couldn't even go through, I had to buy it at market value. They would not let me do it at payoff,
Right. Right.
but that's okay. I got a mortgage, did it. It wasn't bad. And now it's mine, and it's the state closed, and I'm still more secure. And thank you, Lord, I got it at the lower interest rate before they rose.
Yeah.
And I
Good.
got it, at like 3.25 as an interest rate. So that's a decent interest rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a
You
lot of
know,
people. A lot of people right now are wishing for that one. So
I know I'm not going to refinance, I
yeah.
don't think.
So can you let's go back a little bit to that first year, maybe the first a couple years as you're doing this. You use our Debt Freedom Planner. You obviously have been in Roots. Can you talk about from a budgeting standpoint, like how budgeting has helped you throughout this process? Again, you've gone through some significant challenges. You've had to rebuild your emergency fund multiple times. Your mom passed away. You had to deal with a lot of her bills. I mean, obviously, budgeting principles, practice, doing those things all helped you through that. So can you share a little bit about what's helped you most with budgeting and just with our audience, maybe some tips or things that really kind of helped you?
I think writing down all my bills in the planner just helps keep me focused. It keeps me on track. It keeps me, because I had to pay two separate bills for two households for a long time. It kept me motivated. It kept me on track. It's like, okay, I've paid this, this, and this, and I gotta pay this, this, and this. And it keeps me on track. It keeps me motivated. It's like, okay, I've gotten this done. I've paid this much. I've paid this much this month. I can do this, you know? Um, and it really does. It keeps me motivated. I try to make sure I do it every month. At the end of the month, I try to tally how much I've paid off. Okay, I've paid this. I had this much in car repairs. Okay, that's still a win because I was able to do it.
Right.
And some months I don't have to use my emergency fund, which is a win.
It's huge.
Like if I don't have to use it, I hate using it. I
Yeah.
hate it. I just want it to sit there. I don't want to use it. I just want to, my goal this year is to get it up to like $3,000. That's my goal, and I have a lot of medical bills, unfortunately. And now my new insurance is high deductible, which I'm still trying to refigure in how to use it and how to do it and how to help my children use it, unfortunately. But but that's a work in progress, and I'll figure it out because
Right.
that's what I do,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of working on it on a monthly basis, sometimes a weekly basis. And I use a planner, and I was setting goals, and I want to pay this one off and I want to pay that one off, and paying off the smaller ones. And I was making a plan on how to do that.
Yeah. What would you say, like, from a sacrifice standpoint, was there anything significant that you feel, that you had to sacrifice like big, or was there just small adjustments that you've made over the years
For
to
me, it
be
was
able to do some of the stuff you've
smaller
done?
adjustments because I don't go out to eat a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. It was learning how to save if I want to do something. That it did teach me that. Like if I want to do something for my kids, I put it away in an envelope. I am the queen of sinking funds. Like I have them all.
Yeah, you do.
Like whether it's saving up for my kid's birthday present or for Christmas or whatever. Like my middle daughter has no clue. Right now she's in Brazil. Absolutely. She's on vacation. She must have saved up for it. She's having a time of her life. But she has no idea that her Christmas present is still waiting for her. Because when she gets back and she makes her next car payment, my other daughter, my oldest daughter, and I are paying off the rest of her car payment.
Wow.
Because we're going to pay her next 2 car payments, but we're waiting until she makes her next one.
Yeah.
So when she gets home and makes her next car payment, we're paying it off. Because
That's
she'll
awesome.
only owe like $500, and I have it sitting in a sinking fund,
Yeah.
just waiting.
That's incredible.
Merry Christmas to her.
Yeah, right?
know?
How cool.
Because she's like, I really don't want anything, Mom. I'm just working on my college loans.
Yeah.
But that's what we decided we would do because then it will free up money for her.
Yeah.
But it's just having the patience to put stuff aside for sinking funds, whether it's for a new car, whether it's for car repairs, whether it's for a vacation, whether it's I want to drive down the entire East Coast from Bangor, Maine to Miami, Florida, which I did. And it was amazing. I took 30 days.
30 days. A 30-day trip this past summer. Wasn't that this past summer?
It was actually 2 summers ago, but I drove 83 miles. It was an amazing trip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
cool. So now you, can you share what in the last 4 years you've been able to successfully pay off?
As far as money or
just debt, like how much debt you've paid off in the last 4 years?
I paid off $155,969.80 in 4 years. And then with my college loan forgiveness, that was $86,191.88.
Yeah, which isn't included in that 155,
no,
by the way.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not included.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about the college loan forgiveness in just a second, but man, okay, if you go back 4 years ago, would you have ever imagined today, 4 years later, you would have been there?
No.
That is an insane. When you sent me that email, because obviously, when we get you on the podcast, we just want to know some information and obviously know your final numbers and where you're at. And when you sent me those, and I told him, I was like, holy crap! Like I know you've done well, but I didn't know it was that well. Like I was blown away. So
I was too. Actually, when I added it up, I'm like, nah, I did that wrong.
No, we're gonna recalculate that.
I was like, there's no way.
Yeah. So what do you feel when you see that number?
It's like, oh, I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, there you go. You should be. Damn right. You worked so hard for that.
I have. I've really worked really hard for it.
Well, and I think for you, Michelle, like, and what I'll say to your listeners out there, obviously, Michelle's in Roots. So, inside Roots as a member, you come to our live meetups, and we do these live meetups just about every single week. We're off here and there, but I'd say 95% of the year we're meeting once a week. And Micheale, you are one of the people who's there almost every single week. You're there every single week. You have just made not only this commitment to the program, but a commitment to yourself. Like you're gonna do this. And I think if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, what is the big difference maker? Like, how does she do that? I mean, you're a teacher. Like, how do you do that in 4 years? Commitment. You just said, like, you've just been willing to take a different approach. You've been willing to be patient. You've just been willing to like try all of the stuff that we've given you, and you've shown up, and that's how you do it. Like there's no secret behind it. You just have been willing to put in the work. And that's why I think when you say you're proud of yourself, that's why I'm proud of you, because you've been willing to put in the work. And I think most people just aren't willing to do that.
It's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not. And there are times where I'm discouraged and I'm like, I'm not making a difference and I'm not doing this right. And Brad's probably going to be disappointed in me. And then I look at this and I'm like, oh, no, those are pretty good numbers.
Those are pretty fantastic numbers. So like, talk about feelings now. Like, you mentioned prior to, starting this back in 2020, you're just tired. You felt stuck, was constantly just barely getting by, things like that, probably stressed is my guess. But, now you're like in a completely different place. Like, can you talk about how you feel now versus how you felt before?
I feel at least more secure with my finances. I can usually pay all my bills. I set aside enough. I always have some in my ER fund, and I try to take time for myself. And I mean, even now I'm applying for another job, for a second job, because I'm not sure about the medical with my new medical plan. And I'm worried about it. So I'm trying to be proactive.
Right.
In what I need to do, because I don't want to get into that spot where I was before. And so I would rather be proactive versus reactive. And so I don't want to be stuck there. But even when they said, what's your availability? I'm like, oh, I have to have Tuesdays off. Because I don't want to miss Tuesday nights, because it keeps me accountable. It keeps me focused on what I need to do for me. And that means that I need to show up. Because when I don't show up, I feel like I've let myself down. And so I do need that accountability for myself. And I know that. Yeah. And so that helps me keep going and being like, no, I'm doing the right things, showing up. Even if I'm listening to you guys and I don't always say some things on there. But I'm still listening, and I might be working on grading papers while I'm listening, but I'm still there.
Yeah. Now, I think one other thing I want to talk about it and give you this question in the list of kind of questions we were going to go over. But one thing I think we talk about a lot, and this, is celebrating your wins. And I think, I do talk about this, and, quite often I kind of bring you up and I say, this is what I think Micheale does great here. If you guys are looking for an example of making sure you recognize every win. And can you talk about how that's helped you? Because I think that's one of the areas that, even me included, even still today, I'm a very goal-oriented person. When I reach a goal, I don't take time to really probably celebrate it the way I should and recognize what it took to get there. It's always kind of like, let's move on to the next one. But that is not a good idea, right? I need to do better in my own life. And I need to take you as an example of this, because every week, we celebrate on the live meetups and we talk about like the wins that we got the week prior and what were the things that we did good. And you always have like 6 or 7 things that you were listing. Can you talk about how that's helped you stay motivated throughout this?
I think I need that pat on that back to be like, listen, I've done a good job. I'm still working at it. And so therefore, like you said, the accountability, I'm trying to hold myself accountable, and I need that celebration. Like I even set a goal for myself to walk 1,000 miles this year. And I had to create a spreadsheet for myself, and it's exercise miles, just not regular miles, exercise miles. And so I get up every day and I go for my walk, whether it's 3.5 miles, 4.25 miles. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And it's just to be healthier, just for me. It's not for anybody else.
Love that.
And, and it's cold this morning. It was 21 degrees out. Whew. And I walked out 4.3 miles. And I'm like, whoo, all right.
I bet you
I do not have to do anymore.
Bet you were happy you had that furnace when you got back.
Yes, I was. A nice warm shower.
Yeah, I bet.
But it's just, you say you need those celebrations, and you really do. That is the difference.
Yeah.
Because when you don't take the time to celebrate what you've done, even if it is a small win, even when I only put $5 aside for something else, those $5 do add up.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize that that I've paid off $155,000. I didn't realize it was that much money. That blew me away. That's huge. I
Outstanding.
just didn't realize how much it really was in 4 years.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like you mentioned that dollar amount, $5. There are you have celebrated that before. Like it could be just a small, you still celebrate it. And that's what I love about it. There's so many of us that disregard that. Like, oh, I was only able to put like $15 in my savings account this week. Well, it's not about the amount. It's about the consistency of doing it. It's about creating the habit of it over time. And that's what gets you the bigger. Look at Micheale, 4 years, $155,000 in debt paid off. And you have celebrated these little tiny celebrations every single week. And here you are 4 years later. That is the power of consistency and taking small steps forward. And sometimes, I think we can all just disregard those little things. Like they don't matter because they're not big every single week or every single month. Well, they're not going to be. But you talk about it. It's like the consistency of doing it. That's the secret. And man, I feel like your journey has just been, although not perfect because none of ours are, is just a prime example of how you successfully get out of debt. You don't do it overnight. It takes time. It's consistency, it's discipline. There's going to be ups and downs, but you've stayed committed to it.
I'm not out of debt yet. I still got a little ways to go.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep working at it.
But talk about the hope, though, that you see now. Do you feel...
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's
man,
possible.
The light is at the end of the tunnel for you soon.
There is a light.
Yeah. That's got to feel really good. At one time, you probably were like, there's never a way I'm getting out of this.
Yeah, probably, but there's a hope.
Yeah, yeah.
There really is. And I'm still doing loan forgiveness for my Parent Plus loans. And that's
Right.
like 6 years down the road.
Right.
But that's okay. It's just 6 more years of teaching.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
Right. And now let's talk a little bit about that. So you've paid off $155,000 in debt, but then you also did get student loan forgiveness. Talk a little bit about that because some of our listeners may not understand like how you actually got that.
Because I'm a teacher,
Yep.
It's considered public service loan forgiveness. And that's why I did it, because I did 10 years of service, and even before that, I did other things too. Like I got teach grants forgiven. I got Perkins loans forgiven. So there's actually more that I've gotten forgiven. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's
It's not an easy thing to get done.
No, it is paperwork.
It's a lot
upon
of work.
paperwork.
Right.
It is. It's being on the paperwork.
Right.
It's turning it in every year. I have to turn in paperwork and prove that I've worked at schools every year.
Right.
It's being diligent about turning that paperwork in and getting it, making sure that it's a qualifying payment. And we do make payments. Like they tried to up my payment to $810 a month. And I fought and argued and fought and argued. I'm like, that's more than my mortgage. You're telling me that I need to choose whether to live in a house or be homeless.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford both.
Right.
And I argued with them and argued with them and argued with them. And I got it down to $410. Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, no, Brad would tell me to argue. Yeah. So I argued.
You keep at it. Yeah, you keep at it.
I did. I argued them down to $410. And my daughters and I share the payment because I took the loan out for them. And I told them that they had to help me pay it.
Right.
And I said, we just have to pay the bare minimum. And that's it for 6 years.
Right.
And then we split the payment and they help me with it. And they do. And for 6 years, they got to help me with the payment. And then it'll be forgiven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're
awesome.
They're like, you don't want us to pay extra? Nope, don't pay extra.
Don't. Yeah, of course. Because you're looking for the public service forgiveness. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, huge, honestly, blessing for you that it worked out. It doesn't, I don't hear about it often. I don't hear people who often get there. I think in the 8 years that I've been doing this, I think you're maybe the third one that I've ever heard has gotten it done. It doesn't happen very often. So, but anyways, in addition to the $155,000 that you paid off on your own, I mean, that's just an incredibly kind of bonus on the top that's worked out for you.
It did help.
So can you talk a little bit about, your daughters and stuff? Did they, as you kind of went through this, did they have anything to say about changes that mom was making with their finances or anything? Was there any feedback from them or maybe other friends that you were kind of working through some of this stuff?
Not too much. A lot of times they would be like, "Oh, you want to go out?" Nope, it's not my budget right now.
Yeah.
Really? Come on. No, no, it's good. You know, and sometimes they got annoyed with it, but it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, now they know that they got to ask me way in advance.
You've trained them. You've trained them well, Micheale. I love it.
Because if it's not on my budget, it's not generally happening,
That's right. Right.
you know. And I try to budget for that sometimes, and I try to have like a gift budget now too for unexpected like baby showers or wedding things. And
Yeah.
I learned that I need to have a budget for that because before I didn't, and things would like that would pop up.
Right. Right. Yeah. Sinking funds for the win for sure. Yep. Having that budget, saving consistently for those upcoming expenses. That is the secret. So if you're listening to this episode, you're like, how do I stay out of debt in the future? Like, listen to Micheale, like get on a budget, start putting away money for those future expenses that are coming up. And the more you do that, the more in the habit you get of doing it, the less debt you need, and hopefully no more debt you'll need because you'll have the cash to do it.
And sometimes I've had to borrow from my sinking funds. It's like, okay, this came up. Well, I'll pull this out of my sinking fund. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do, but it's better than taking it out of my emergency fund.
But I love that though, because that's what most people miss about savings. Savings, even if it's saving for something else and you end up having to use it for something that came up, like you said, savings creates opportunity to flex in your life without creating more financial stress. And having those sinking funds allows you to adjust. It allows you to adjust to life. Yeah, it may not have worked out perfectly, but now savings has created this opportunity for you to now use this money for whatever's popped up. Whereas opposed to if you don't have any money, you're constantly relying on debt and you're just adding more and more stress and payments to your life. And you're like, I'm never going to get out of this. But you've turned the cycle of that for your life. I mean, that's just in 4 years time. And then if you think about the trajectory of the rest of your life, all you've learned, all the habits you've created, how that's just going to keep moving forward and building more and more momentum as the time goes on. It's going to be awesome for you. It's awesome.
I hope so.
I'm so excited for you. Really, from day one to see where you started and all the stuff that you've gone through. It's really, really exciting to see where you're at today because it's just as my job, it's one of the coolest parts about it is just to get to watch people go through this journey. And it's been so much fun to watch. So
I can't wait till I'm debt free.
You will get there. Yeah, you're getting there. You're on your way. So like, what is the goal for you? Like once you're debt free, like what are some future things that you'd love to be able to do just in your life and experience, and looking at that, we talk about having some sort of a why or purpose to kind of move you forward, keep motivated. What's Micheale's like? What are you looking to do?
I really want to travel.
Love that. Yeah.
Australia is definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, there you go. Super fun. Yeah.
I would love to go like there for like a month or so.
Yeah, how cool. That's one of the top ones we hear when I talk to people. It's like if you didn't have to worry so much about money and you had money to go do things that you love to do, what would it be? Travel is typically the number one answer. So
and I do travel more than most people. I just pick up sometimes and I go for a weekend or whatever, and I get my little car and we just go.
Yeah. Love that.
But I do it on a budget as well. So
sure.
But
well, good for you. Awesome. So last question for you, Micheale, before we let you go off the show here today. If you had to go back and talk to the Micheale from 4+ years ago and, maybe they're on the fence, maybe they're just not quite sure if, should I, not necessarily roots, but just in general, should I start working on my finances? Should I start budgeting? Should I start paying attention to this more? Like, what would you say to them knowing what you know now today, 4 years later?
This will take time. This will be hard work, but it's so worth it. Keep track right away. I wish I had kept better track my very first year. I think I would have had more paid off, or I would have known that I had more paid off. Because I think I joined in 2019 and I didn't keep track.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I kept track that first year. And so I think I've paid off more and I have no clue. Which is kind of sad. It's just like, ooh, I missed the boat there. Like,
well, I think you bring up a good point though. It's when you get started, it's hard. That's why, again, that's why we have Roots. It's support and accountability. It's to have someone kind of hold your hand throughout that first part, because the first 6 to 12 months are not easy.
No, it is not.
You can make great progress. We got so many people who are making great progress in that short period of time, but it's not easy. It's like you said, it's hard work. It's going to take time.
And I don't think I kept as good a track as I do now.
Yeah. But that's something you learn. Tracking is such a good behavior change. You've learned that. Like, I didn't track, but now I started to, and like, holy cow, this actually shows that I'm on the right path.
Right. I think because if you don't track, you don't see your wins as well either.
Yeah, for sure. And it's especially easy to give up because you're like, well, what good is this? I'm not really getting any results. And if you don't have any proof of progress from tracking, it's easy just to wave the white flag and say, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore.
Exactly.
Right? And now looking at Micheale, $155,000 of debt paid off. I bet you're more motivated now. Like, I'm going to keep going.
Motivated.
This is working, right?
Yes.
All right, Micheale. Well, I just want to say congratulations to you. We're so proud of you. Like I said, it's been an honor of mine to be able to be here with you and just about every Tuesday with you and celebrating your wins and seeing the consistency and discipline. And not only just, from my standpoint, but also just being a great member there in Roots. And I know other people are seeing you. Other people are watching. Other people on those live meetups are seeing you consistently being there. And you're providing them the motivation. Like, if she's doing this, I'm going to do it too. And we're going to have people on this podcast that are going to listen to this episode and say, if this a teacher, a normal everyday person can do $155,000 in 4 years, why not me, right? And your story is now going to be able to give more people hope. So thank you so much for coming on and giving that to those people. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
You're
Have
welcome.
a great day.
Yeah, you too. So the Totally Awesome Debt Freedom Planner is helping so many people make consistent progress with their finances. Whether that be building emergency funds, paying down bills, budgeting, tracking paydays, saving up for larger purchases, goal planning, and planning for those irregular yearly expenses that always seem to catch you by surprise. Now, the Debt Freedom Planner will help you take the stress out of managing your money. And if the thought is running through your mind, hey, I just need to have a simple tool to get my finances together, this planner is perfect for you. Head over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on the Debt Freedom Planner in the menu at the top of the page, and order your Debt Freedom Planner today.
Let's talk about that, baby. Let's talk about your money. Let's talk about all the good things, all the bad things that may be. Let's talk about that.
Hey guys, as you know, that sound means it is time for the celebrations of the show, and today we're kicking it off with Claudianne. Claudianne says, all bills are paid, and I put an additional $300 into my emergency fund. Claudianne, congratulations. It's a great win. Susie, I finished my first budget. She says, it's terrifying, but it's done. Susie, you are absolutely right. These first few months of budgeting, that's why we always like to say, just call them a crappy budget, because they're going to be crappy, they're going to be hard, it's going to be scary, it's going to be terrifying like you described, but that's okay. Those feelings are signs of change, and those are all good things. So congratulations for you getting that first one done, and things will only improve from here, so keep up the great work. Shelly also says, made final payment on my personal loan. I'm able to roll, check this out, guys, and an additional $465 every single month onto my next snowball item. That is a huge chunk of money now added to her debt payoff plan every month moving forward. Shelly, such a great win. Congratulations. Kim went off track this past Christmas and an upcoming baby shower, but I completed my January and New Year budget. 2024 will be a good year in getting things paid off. Kim, way to get back on track. Way to jump back on that wagon. Aaron, the extra paycheck showed up today that I was waiting for, and it will all be going into my savings. I love that. Aaron padding up that savings feels great. And Angela, to finish us off here today, has said, I don't need that, to about 5 things this week. Those are the most hard-fought wins, you guys. Those behavior changes, saying no, standing up for your personal financial life. Oof, it's a hard thing to do sometimes, especially when they are enticing you to buy and you just want to get it. Angela, such a great, great win. Hey, as always, congratulations to all of you guys who are taking a stand for your financial life and are wanting better. We get that getting out of debt isn't easy, but with our help and with your consistency and discipline, we promise you this will be some of the best work you do in your entire life. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today, and we will see you on our next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Debt Free Dad podcast. Connect with us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Debt Free Dad. If you found value in today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. We so appreciate it. For resources, show notes, and links mentioned in today's show, visit debtfreedad.com. Catch you next week.